Hi, this is Kathy Lowry Gallowitz with Vanguard Veteran. Thank you so much for listening to this interview of Nichole Coleman, a very special friend and a veteran. We're going to talk about Veteran Connection Ministries or they're sometimes called military ministries. We're going to hear what she's done, why she's done it, and how to get started. So, Nicole, thank you so much. Please do us the honor of telling us a little bit about your background and what you currently do.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for this opportunity. There is nothing that I am more passionate about talking about than my Veterans Discovering New Life group. I am a 7-year Air Force veteran. I was in Desert Storm and in the Bosnian conflict. Married to a 10-year Air Force veteran who also was in Desert Storm. Daughter of a Vietnam vet and granddaughter of Korean War and World War II vets. So,
Wow.
And I have aunts and uncles that have served, and very patriotic family. One of the things that I have learned is how military service, particularly combat, changes us, changes our lives, changes perspectives, and maybe changes how we deal with things.
Well, you have a lot of firsthand experience that, really shapes everything about you and your ability to connect and support other people, right?
Yeah, and so that's why I'm so passionate to talk about this. So I'm sitting at work right now. I am a County Veterans Service Officer and the director of the Hancock County Veterans Service Office in Ohio. And through my church, had kind of recognized the opportunity to have some kind of small group or ministry that would give veterans an opportunity to discover what God's doing in their lives, what's going on in the world around them, and talk about it with people who understand and can relate to and won't judge them. I think one of the unique things that veterans have as far as the connection with one another is that we've all been in that melting pot together, where, you may have lived in a community where you were the minority, or where there weren't a lot of minorities, or there were only Republicans or only Methodists or only Baptists, or, whatever it is. And the cool thing about the military is when we come together, it's all of that. It's the atheists and the Baptists and the Catholics and everybody in the same pot, regardless of religion or background. And we learn to grow together that way.
So specifically, the name of the group is?
Veterans Discovering New Life.
And the denomination?
So the church that I go to is a Pentecostal. It's an Assemblies of God church. But in the group, we have Catholics, we have atheists, we have agnostics, we have
awesome.
a Baptist, we've got a Lutheran, and I think we have about 27 or 28 people enrolled in the group now, and so there are 2 of us that go to my church.
What was the driving force for starting this?
So I was helping a Vietnam veteran with a disability claim, and we were filing a claim for post-traumatic stress disorder. And in that process, you do have to share a little bit about some of the trauma that you experienced that caused the PTSD with the VA. You have to share that experience with them. And during this interview process, he is telling me about a Christmas Eve when he was in Vietnam. And there were some pretty horrific things that had happened that week. And the chaplain was going around and visiting with the guys. And this man had been a devoted Catholic his whole life, very, very devoted. And as the chaplain was coming around and talking to the men, he said, I don't think that I can ever go to church again. I don't think I can talk to God. Because we need to, I can't be that same person who believed in God and kindness and goodness and then go out tomorrow and have to do what I have to do tomorrow. I have to separate from that.
Wow.
And so then I stopped my job for a minute and just leaned in and listened. I said, tell me more about how did you get from there? Because I know you are a Catholic and practicing again. So tell me, how did you get from there to here?
And if I may, real quickly, research shows that for combat veterans in particular, that about 40% of them have a difficult time regaining and keeping in touch with their spirituality. So thank
Absolutely.
you. Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
interesting. That's kind of what got you started.
Yeah, and the VA has recognized that. Now I know I'm referencing the VA a lot. I don't work for the VA. I work for my county, but I do follow what the VA is saying as far as trends. And they did a few years ago discover that they needed to put more money into making sure that there were good chaplain services available in the VA hospitals to help with the spiritual wellness of the individuals, because that helps improve the quality of life and helps them be reconciled to themselves.
And I believe it's a very profound suicide prevention intervention.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the VA started the community clergy training program in about 2010, 11, I think, to go out and teach civilian clergy how to utilize their resources better to really support smooth transitions post-military and potentially to curb suicide. So when did you start this, and how did you start your Veteran Connection ministry?
So I started this group, I believe, in 2014, maybe 2015. And basically, I have a pastor that is like, I think, the best pastor in the whole world, because he really takes the time to get to know the people in the church and find out what their passions are, with the understanding that God has placed those passions in each one of us to impact a different group of people. And so rather than telling people, we need Sunday school teachers, we need nursery workers, his mindset is, what is it you're passionate about? Okay, so we need to reach veterans. How can I empower you and equip you to do that?
Beautiful.
So that's what he just kept asking me those questions. And frankly, for a few years, I just kept saying, I can't do that. I don't have the knowledge. I don't even know where to begin. If I start bringing these people in, they're going to have challenges that I don't know what to do with. And so for a while, for a couple of years, honestly, it was my fear that kept me from doing it. But over time.
And if I may, real quickly, if you felt that way as a combat veteran, someone who has these firsthand experiences, number one, number two, now as a professional, you know how to support veterans. Certainly, we can imagine that someone who has none of those experiences might feel uncertain, right? But if you lead with your heart and bring people together, what happens? The answers emerge. And at the end of the day, all we're doing is creating a circle of people who care. What do you think?
Absolutely. That is absolutely what it is. So I said to my pastor, I think I'm ready to start. I don't know what I'm doing, but I am ready to let people know that I'm here and I care. And he said, okay, what are you waiting for? And I said, the veterans. And he said, well, I thought you said you already had one. And I said, I do, but there's only one. And he said, then meet with that one.
I love this guy.
So, yeah. And so that's what we did. So we met, I strategically planned it so that the meeting was at our church right before the Celebrate Recovery meetings. And if you're not familiar with what those are, it's a 12-step program, just like AA, uses the same 12 steps, but it has 8 biblical principles that go with it. And understanding that a lot of times veterans, like a lot of people, self-medicate. And so this would be then a good transition that we could just move on to the Celebrate Recovery together. So the two of us met for a few weeks, and it didn't take long for word to start getting around, and then there were 2 of us, and then 3 of us, and then 8 of us,
And now 27 of us. Wow.
yeah, yeah. And so it really has been an amazing journey together with these veterans.
Give me an example of, some of the conversations you had to begin with, and now kind of your structure as you meet, what, monthly?
We meet weekly. We have one
Okay.
meeting on Monday mornings at 10, and we have another meeting on Mondays at 5:30.
Oh,
That way people can choose which meeting time fits in their schedule.
wonderful.
And we always start the meeting by, how have things went in your week? How are things in your life? What are you looking forward to this week? And then, is there anything going on in your life that you need to talk about right now in this safe place? And then I always make sure that I come with a quote or a Bible verse or a thought that I'm going to share. And then just, how does everyone feel about this?
Nice.
A few of the things that we have done that have been really wonderful, that have helped us grow as a group, there is a wellness recovery action plan workbook that was created specifically for veterans. And what I love about it is it's very strategic. So it's helping you deal with emotional and mental health related things, but in a way that veterans are very comfortable with, because here's a workbook. It's black and white. Here's what I do. And here's what I do with it when I'm done with it.
Wow.
And so we brought up someone who was trained to do that. We brought them in, and that was our meeting for 5 weeks. We met with that professional for 5 weeks, and we did the workbook together. And now that's a resource that we have to refer to. So if we start noticing that one of our guys or gals is every week experiencing some of the same problems or getting worse, we can say, what did you write about that in your wellness recovery action plan? And how can we support you?
And again, you're not a counselor, you're not a therapist, right?
Right.
And so
exactly.
what do you have to say to people that might fear that they won't know what to say when?
I think the key is to have some kind of mental health first aid training, so that you know what is it that you're responsible for, and at what point do you need to call someone else to say, I need help with this gentleman or with this woman.
Just know your boundaries. Just know where you're uncomfortable, and don't be afraid to ask for help early, right?
Right. And that's, I think one of the keys that I would say is to make sure that you are always being genuine, raw, real with the people. There have been times where, someone will be saying something in group, and I'll say, I have no idea how to support you right now. I don't have any idea. And if it's okay with you, I'd really like to call someone. Can you stay when group's over so that I can call Ellen and we can talk to her together?
Wow, that's beautiful.
And I think having, and what helped make that a good possibility in this group is that before I started the group, I developed good collaborative relationships with local mental health professionals, law enforcement people, obviously.
Just knowing who your resources are, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I would bring those people in to speak at our groups. And so that way, if I'm saying to Joe, hey, I'd like to call Ellen, he's comfortable with that because he knows Ellen.
Oh, that's so great. Yes.
And I've brought in yoga instructors who taught us grounding and deep breathing exercises. I brought in
So after you've been doing this for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe, right?
Right.
Maybe 6.
Right.
And so, but during that time, would you say you have one person a year come speak, or is it once a quarter? What's your frequency to have those guest speakers come in?
I would say probably 2 or 3 times a year.
There you go. So really the focus is building relationships, building trust, right? What is the primary purpose of your military ministry, veteran connection ministry? How would you state that purpose?
If I was going to say one thing, it would be to increase the quality of life
Mm,
of every man and woman in the group,
mhm.
to provide a safe environment where they can talk about anything without fear of judgment. And
And it takes time to develop that, right?
it absolutely takes time to develop that. And we have had meetings where there were discussions. Maybe one of the veterans was sharing some combat experience that they had not ever talked about before, and they just needed to unload, and that triggered someone else who then
Yeah,
needed to leave the room for a little while.
yeah.
And so we dealt with, how do we make the person who left the room feel comfortable when they come back? How do we make the person who was sharing not feel guilty for making that person leave, but
Oh, wow.
understand that they did the right thing by sharing what they needed to share? And
And you talked
um,
about this as a group, is what I'm
we
hearing you
did
say.
absolutely talked about it
So
as a
so
group.
the group came up with the answers for that group.
Right.
Wow.
And speaking of that, that is one of the things when we first started the group. I would say for the first 6 to 8 months, anytime someone new would come in, I would say, okay, now here are the rules that this group created.
Nice.
Is
Nice.
there anything you're uncomfortable with? Is there anything you'd like to add? And that was wonderful, because then it really was ownership of the group. And I will say, I think one of the things that has made this maybe a little unique is that I do have a little bit of a selfish reason for starting the group, because I needed a group myself. And so they know that, yes, while I'm facilitating the group, there's going to be days where I'm going to come in and say, okay, I need you guys to be my group today, because I need this.
Wonderful.
And that has been, I think, as good for them as
Mhm,
it was for me,
mhm.
because when you deal with depression or anxiety, you can get stuck in a me mentality
Mhm.
and focused on your needs instead of other people's needs. And it is very healing to help other people.
It is very healing to help other people. And I think anybody who's listening to this can see in a heartbeat your authenticity, your compassion, your passion, and how you're willing to be vulnerable and lead with your heart. And, that those are fundamental key aspects of developing trusting relationships. So, um,
Absolutely.
can I ask you the next question? And that is, what have been some of the results, outcomes? What has happened through this time together?
One of the things that we have come to love about our group, and I think I can say we collectively, I think they would all say the same thing if they were sitting behind me, is that we can talk about things where there might be 3 or 4 different opinions sitting around the table at the same time, and everyone can share with complete rawness their feelings about this situation and why they feel that way, and hear someone with a completely different opinion and still support each other. And the hearing is, I think, the key. I think so many of us in today's day and age are, and I think social media has a little bit to do with this, but we forget how important it is to help people feel heard
Mm,
and to validate what they're feeling and why they're saying what they're saying, and to really understand and make sure that they know that we understand and that we heard them. And so there was a specific example. There's this one gentleman who had for years self-medicated with marijuana, not in an abusive sort of way, but just that was his medicine of choice. And when it became legal, he came to group and just kind of had a lot of mixed feelings about how he felt about the fact that he just got to go do this legally for the first time.
mm.
And now I'm sitting in this room of people who I know most of you think it's wrong, and most of you didn't think it should have been legalized. And I'm kind of excited, and I want to share my excitement with you. And I cried because the other guys in the room were like, we are so happy for you. Even though these were the same guys who would say, no, we think it's wrong. We think we shouldn't be doing it. But they recognized what he needed.
Aw.
And they supported him. And we've had some really, really good conversations about that, you know, about some of the things that are really controversial in the world. And I just love the fact that I feel like I'm sitting with a group of people who love each other enough to hear each other.
Well,
and to love each other.
Right on. And you referenced that at the beginning, that we're all melting pots. And I think veterans generally are very willing and interested to try to hear other people's point of view, but to create that safe sanctuary where it can actually happen and people feel loved through their difference is certainly the art of this whole thing. So what else? What else has happened in that 6 years? Two more things, please, real quick.
Let's see. I would say I have seen incredible increased quality of life. So we have one veteran who, after he retired, he bought a boat, and he used to take his boat out. His depression got so bad that he didn't want to live anymore and didn't really have any interest in any of the things that he used to enjoy. And he took his boat out for the first time this summer in a couple of years. And that is super exciting.
That is super exciting. I love boating, but I want to again highlight some of the research shows that 55% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans feel disconnected from mainstream America, and that VA says that social isolation really is a precursor to veteran suicide, which, as you know, is 20 or 22 people per day. And so you being a facilitator for yourself and others to foster those connections and build that quality of life is magical, wonderful, and, you know, makes a big difference.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously it doesn't always end the way that we want it to. We lost one of our veterans last night. I just found out a couple of hours ago. He was 35.
Oh.
And, you know, I've heard the term many times, moral injury. And I don't know that I ever fully grasped why they chose the word moral to put with injury until I met this young man, because he was such a sensitive soul.
Aww.
And to have to live with the kinds of things that he experienced in combat was just more than he could handle. And, you know, when I was talking to one of my friends this morning about him, he said, "How long was he in the group, Nicole?" And I said, 2 years. And he said, "So you may have improved his life for those 2 years. And the group helped him know he wasn't alone. There were other people who lived with some of the same things he did." And I know that he was very suicidal when I first met him.
Yeah.
And so he may have lived a few years longer
There you go.
than he would have
if
he didn't come to our group. And so, you know, even with the difficulties that our veterans face that come to these groups, knowing that, you know, now we are going to grieve his loss together. So I'm not going to deal with this loss by myself. I'm going to be dealing it with my people
who loved him. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it can be hard. It can be hard to have this kind of ministry, and that's why it's so important to have you know, mentors, coaches, people in your life that are going to support you and empower you and equip you to have what you need.
And to fully appreciate you don't have all the answers, and there's only so much you can do. If you foster a place of connection where people feel safe and loved, at the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about. What do you think?
That is absolutely what it is all about. And you know, you asked at the beginning, the key purposes, or why, why start this ministry. And, with that first Vietnam vet telling me the story, I would say it was a lot about reconciliation to God, but also reconciliation to themselves.
Yes.
Because when you go to combat, you come back a different person. I don't care who you are, you're going to come back different than who you were. And that reconciliation.
A couple of clarifications here as we kind of wind this up. Number one, you're not a Bible scholar, you're not a chaplain, right. You're not right. a counselor, you're someone who loves veterans and wants to help, right?
Absolutely. And we don't do Bible studies. Honestly, we even very rarely pray together. I think if I were going to give one piece of advice to someone who is going to start a group like this, I would say, do not come with any agenda other than to love the person right where they are. Because if you come with an agenda that you're going to teach them the Gospels, or you're going to teach them how to pray, or you're going to get them involved in such and such ministry, veterans see through crap. And if you're coming with an agenda, they are going to see right through it. Yeah. If you come with a genuine heart to love them exactly the way they are, you're going to make a difference in their life.
Beautiful. And also clarify, please, that not everybody in your group is a combat veteran, right?
That is correct. We do have some veterans who, we have a few who served very short periods of time because they were diagnosed with illnesses while they were in basic training or while they were in tech school. And they felt like they didn't fit in with the veterans and they didn't fit in with the civilians because they had tried to be veterans, but they didn't get to be. And so we've helped them reconcile to the fact that, yes, you raised your right hand, you took the oath, you did what was asked of you. That was all you could do. And that has improved their self-esteem and helped reacclimate them to their community.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Nicole, I'm so inspired to hear everything that you have done and appreciate your courage, your leadership, your authenticity, and your willingness to step out and make such a meaningful impact with everything that you possess, because, we don't have to be experts or counselors, therapists, ministers to make a big difference in quality of life and give back to those who have given so much to us. So what do you think about sharing some contact information with people in case they might want to dip into your expertise or ask you questions? You willing to share that?
Absolutely. So my email address is N for Nicole, R for Renee, Coleman, COLEMAN @co.hancock.oh.us. And I am certain that if you email Kathy, she'd be happy to share that with you as well. And my phone number is 419-424-7036. And I am happy to do anything I can to help people get something like this started.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm so proud of you. And, should you want to email me, my email is Kathy with a K @vanguardveteran.com. That's singular, not plural. So let's wind this up. I'm going to try to, here we go, close out. But again, Nicole, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being so inspirational and in your walk in your personal life and your professional life, just making a huge difference, girlfriend. I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for doing this interview and for, continuing to do the great work. How's that?
Thank you so much, Kathy. I appreciate you too.
Thank you. Here we go.